Way back in the day, Robot Wars would host a special championship event every year called the World Championships, a tournament which pitted the best England had to offer versus various robots from all around the world, from popular regions such as Germany and America to some of the more obscure regions in the sport such as Sweden, Austria, and even South America. These tournaments always brought creative designs and often crowned a very deserving champion, but we have not had an international special tournament like that since all the way back in 2003 until now. 2024's heavyweight action kicked off with Battle of Robots returning with their second ever tournament, the Battle of Robots SuperFinal, which featured robots from all around the world, such as Russia, India, Brazil, and for the first time ever, Bolivia and Ecuador, among others, in a 16-competitor single elimination tournament. So let's see how TCC top-ranked robots like Domination and Iron Scrap fared against some new blood. Let's check out some of the best fights a very young 2024 had to offer. And stay tuned for the end of the video for some very topical arena discussion. I know, so fun. Right here, right now, on the Combot Collective.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello and welcome back to the Combot Collective. As after two exciting live streams last month of bringing you everything you want to know about robot combat from the heavyweight class to the featherweight class, we're back to our event rundowns, and fresh off our last rundown, we're still in the heart of Russia for more Battle of Robots. Last time we covered a new Russian superpower on TCC, it was to run down their inaugural championship, one which delivered us some very exciting new designs like Daddy and Hypericum, along with bringing back some beloved robots in the sport such as Weber, Rainbow, and of course the eventual champion of the tournament, Iron Scrap. A number of which also happened to appear at this event right here, the Battle of Robots SuperFinal, which took place in late February. Now, despite its incredibly misleading name, the Battle of Robots SuperFinal was not some grand championship of sorts, not even close in fact. Now, a lot of robots that did go far in the inaugural Battle of Robots season were invited to compete here, including all of the semifinalists. But, like I mentioned at the top of the video, this served more as a world championship tournament of sorts. The event co-aligned with the World Future Games, another Russian-ran event which had always focused on international esports, but looked to expand their horizons further with the addition of a different style of technical sport in robot combat. So to keep with the international flair of the tournament, a 3-day, 16-robot single-elimination tournament was conceived, featuring fighting robots from a shocking 10 nations present, 3 of which had never fielded a heavyweight before ever in the sport's long history. It was a fun tournament which gave every robot the chance to fight at least twice. We had plenty of upsets, huge moments, massive hits, and a couple of electric fights to go over on this TCC rundown episode. And like I mentioned, even a little bit of arena safety discussion after a wild incident in the SuperFinal semifinals. So let's not waste any time to jump into this 16 robot showdown from all around the world. First, we're going to be looking at the star-studded field of robots, then going through every fight in the main tournament. Time to find out who left the SuperFinal as a true champion of the world. We'll kick off with the de facto #1 seed of this world tournament, the reigning and defending Battle of Robots champion. We just talked about him, Iron Scrap, who just like at Battle of Robots would be the sole robot to represent China at this competition. This King of Bots original entered the year with maybe more momentum than any other heavyweight in the sport after its dominant run at the inaugural Battle of Robots, going 6-0 with 6 straight KOs, and only one of those 6 battles lasting longer than 2 minutes. The robot really showed nobody else compared to it last year, and it looked to be even better at this event with the brand new addition of a mini-bot, a cam lifter, much like the ones we've seen in the past from Vegas Combat Robotics, such as Supreme Ruler and Ace. Next up, of course, representing India is our de facto #2 seed, Godspeed, a robot which was only defeated by Iron Scrap last year in the Battle of Robots finals. This robot came from the relatively unknown DT Robotics, and while it wasn't as well known as some of its fellow countrymen in that first tournament, it certainly was by the end of the event. Much like how Iron Scrap is an all-business drum bot, this is an all-business four-wheel drive Verge with a killer egg beater and some of the quickest drive we have seen in Battle of Robots' short history, which has been a major key to victory in the past over machines such as Red Triangle and Hypericum. That being said, they aren't the only robot from India in this competition, as just like in the Battle of Robots December final, it would be joined by TCC number 31 ranked Danaji, the heavyweight ace of Blanca bots. Now, we've discussed Blanca bots a few times on this channel. They are one of the most successful and popular teams in the world in terms of teams that have not competed yet in battle bots. Danaji was a brand new robot for Battle of Robots, and it clearly had some gremlins in the December final versus Turbo Masha and Barracuda, but the potential is indeed there. In its battle versus Andromeda last year, we saw just how far Danaji can throw a robot and how badly it can damage one. Now it's all about consistency for the elite Indian team. And speaking of Barracuda, we now go to that Energy Girls flipper, our first home nation Russian representative to discuss, and the robot which placed fourth at Battle of Robots. Barracuda had been a longtime competitor in the sport, with numerous appearances at Bitva Robotov and even a televised appearance on ClashBots in 2018. In its first appearance since the pandemic, though, this Brit flipper, captained by the ladies behind BattleBots 2019 competitor Rainbow, managed to pull off some very controversial wins en route to a top 4 finish at Battle of Robots. The low-pressure flipper is well controlled and can succeed, but it had to prove it was indeed not a fluke at this event. So there we go. Quickly, we've discussed the first, second, and fourth place finishers at Battle of Robots. But don't think third place was not invited as well. Also coming from Russia, a personal favorite of mine, the Combot-like Wayside 23. This killer vertical spinner absolutely ripped its way through what was Team Turbo Mechatronics' first ever event, making the team look like total veterans as it bested older robots such as Iron Wind and War Machine with the greatest of ease on its road to the top 3. The robot now stands as maybe the most destructive robot in the entire country, with only a couple of robots able to compare to its sheer knockout power thus far, but a lot can change in a year. One of those robots which stands out as a challenger to Wayside 23's power would be Daddy, a robot which has very quickly become a fan favorite in not only its home country, but all over the world with its insane egg beater spinner. One which has power that could rival even Riptide, dare I say. This robot shocked us all last September when it, as an absolute unknown, went out and obliterated Barracuda and the arena wall in its debut fight. Then, in its actual qualifier in November, it easily cleaved its way into the December finals with wins over Rhino and Golden Dragon. But then in round 1 of the Sweet 16, Daddy, after dominating against the aforementioned Godspeed early, weapon issues, and a very unfortunate arena flip would cost Daddy in what was an all but decided battle. If any veteran had much more to prove at this event, it was this one. One robot at this competition which had troubles against these vicious spinners would be one Weber, one of the oldest robots in the nation and the de facto face of Russian robot combat. This robot has competed at Bitva Robotov, Brombot, King of Bots, and even at Robot Wars, but easily drew the most buzz for itself last year at Battle of Robots 2023, where it easily reached the Sweet 16. But now the narrative for this robot seems to be the fact that other robots in its home region are now competing with it. From 2017 to 2022, there were no truly vicious spinners in the nation outside of Rainbow. But now with robots such as Daddy and Wayside 23, a robot which has actually beaten Weber before in the past, now sharing the spotlight, this event will be a big test for Team Bigger Brother to sturdy their ace for the year to come. This would be the first international competition Weber had competed in since 2018's Robot Wars UK versus the World event. But honestly, the less said about that competition, the better. Moving briskly on forward, we have 2 more Russian robots which also reached the Battle of Robots December final, also present in this tournament. One a full body spinner and one a drum. Of the 2, let's drum things up first with Adam, a veteran of the scene which had a totally new look for its first event since the pandemic in Battle of Robots. Adam went from a very early era vertical spinner to one of the sleekest 2-wheel drive drums in the country last year, and the efforts went into the robot definitely showed when it took to the arena. It bulldogged its way through the September qualifier event with a huge win over the Indian drumbot Sarkel in what was a phenomenal back and forth battle. And then it beat Kolobaka before only being bested by another 2-wheel drive drumbot in Iron Scrap, who sat in the bracket hopeful for a rematch against its once adversary. Our last Russian rep in this competition would be the wild full-body spinner Turbo Masha, a robot who, despite doing as much damage to itself as it did to its opponents, managed to put on some amazing shows during Battle of Robots 2023. delivering a promising showing, which sadly had some weapon troubles in the process, especially in round 1 of the Battle of Robots SuperFinal versus Denaji. The team had since discussed their strategy and design with, of all teams, the Robotic Death Company, creators of Gigabyte and Megabyte, to improve their robot for this event. And as you will see with a certain fight later in this rundown, things had most certainly improved for the Turbo Machine. Our last Battle of Robots 2023 veteran entered this competition representing the nation of Kazakhstan, but curiously was also the only veteran invited to this event that was not part of the December finals. Huntsman is a veteran Brit flipper which has competed at heavyweight events in both Russia and Kazakhstan over its 6-year career, but still with little to no success at all. Huntsman, though, entered this tournament with some of its biggest changes since debuting, including a new flipping beak, new flipper power, and a new body. This event was a big one for the Kazakhstani flipper to do well in as well, as the robot was not invited back for the second Battle of Robots Championship. It was time for these guys to seriously leave their mark. But now let's get to our very, very fascinating flock of 6 rookies coming from all over the world, and a group of robots which honestly kept quite meta with their various design philosophies. And here we start with, in my opinion, the most fascinating nation of the 3 which debuted at this event. Of all places, here we are, the United Arab Emirates. Yes, for the first time ever, Dubai was entering the heavyweight arena with a combat-ready robot. And with a nation that has such a high GDP, the mind automatically goes to robots like Quantum and Rapid, machines that exhibit what a lot of money going into a robot can do. But instead, as you can see here with Team TBD's Towhead, we got what was honestly a bit of a humble design, a tomb clone that had quite a few spikes on its body as a defensive apparatus. Seemed like a solid start for what was a very inexperienced team in Team TBD, but a team that had high hopes nonetheless. Next up, another debuting nation, this time all the way across the planet in Ecuador. We have IWIAS, a robot named after the nation's military, which is what the team is named after, Jungle Demons. IWIAS was a very interesting concept, as the team originally planned to compete as a Swiss Army bot, with the horizontal spinner and vertical spinner variations being completely different machines, as the horizontal spinner was inspired by Tombstone and the vertical spinner was inspired by Black Dragon. Unfortunately, though, despite what the graphics said all tournament, the team only had the horizontal spinner configuration robot prepared for this event. So despite the unique robot they did end up fielding, this was a bit of a blunder, but it did give Team Jungle Demons, a crew just as experienced as Team TBD, a chance to focus on just one robot instead of 2 completely different ones. They probably would have bit off a bit too much than they could have chewed if that did happen. Now, from South America, we now go back to the Middle East, as just north of the UAE resides the 2-wheel drive vertical spinner Diaco, which comes from Iran, a shockingly active country in the world of robot combat. The nation has hosted numerous small and big robot events, and even has a middleweight championship that airs on TV every year called RoboSkills Iran, an event we would cover at the Combot Collective if their arena actually had a fucking roof. Safety aside, the robots from the country have looked promising for quite some time, turning heads including BattleBots themselves, who are rumored to have been on the hunt for an Iranian team to appear inside the BattleBot. Well, maybe they have one here with Diaco, the country's second ever heavyweight, and one which has been greatly inspired by some of the robots which have succeeded in their home nation. But now we go back to South America for another debuting nation in the class, this time coming from a team called Chilean Robotics Lab, representing, you guessed it, the country of Chile, here with Condor Machine. Now, Condor Machine kind of suffered from the same problem Golden Dragon had at Battle of Robots 2023, where the CAD and renders presented by a team and show honestly looked nothing like the actual robot presented, albeit not nearly as heinous as Golden Dragon. The render suggested this would be a 2-wheel drive vertical spinner, whereas the final version was a 4-wheel drive vertical spinner. Actually kind of a very compact version of machines such as Bite Force and Honey Badger. Honestly, kind of a sleek robot, very well machined in the all silver plus a vicious looking spinner. Those front wedges though, little bit questionable. So there are 2 Middle Eastern and 2 South American newcomers. Let's take it back to square one now with Europe as we go to our final country making their heavyweight debut, Belarus, with Walter Black of Crazy Bunny Robotics Labs. And unlike most of these young rookie robotics teams, these guys actually have a history in competitive robotics, with the team being known for competing in autonomous sumo events since the year of 2020. But the team wanted a brand new challenge and went straight to the top with the idea of competing in 250-pound robot combat. This team was smart though. They knew to keep it simple, so they went with a design that worked. One that just won Battle of Robots 2023, a two-wheel drive drum. Walter Black was a very boxy robot, but the team promised that it was very strong, very maneuverable, and now they were set to put that to the test. Finally, robot number 16 in the field is another from South America, and when you talk about robot combat in South America, the mind immediately is going to strafe towards Brazil, and you bet your ass we got a Brazilian robot in this field, but shockingly enough, for the first time in quite some time, it is not one that falls under the umbrella of one of the nation's top teams. Sure, we've seen Ogrobots, Uriah, Thunder Rats, and of course Riobots inside heavyweight arenas all over the world, but even as a pro on the sport of robot combat, not even I could say I was familiar with Team Brabots and their brand new debut heavyweight Brabber, another two-wheel drive meta drum bot with the option of a multi-bot as we saw later in the event. The robot looks a bit more rudimentary compared to its in-country counterparts, but the team seemed confident, and the captain even joked that he'd spend his prize money on another vacation to Russia. But there we go, 16 robots from all over the world, 10 nations in fact, from 4 different continents. You'll love to see it, but now as we move on to the matches, this tournament would kind of shock us all and pull a Robot Wars Series 9 by pitting our number 1 and number 2 seed versus one another very early into the competition. And when I say early, I mean literally the first fight of the entire event. Yes, just 2 months after their battle for the Battle of Robots Championship, these two robots, Iron Scrap and Godspeed, fully fresh this time, would put their immediate updates to the test. The most notable of which between the two robots would be Iron Scrap's new Cam Lifter Minibot, which ended up being the source of heartbreak very early here. This battle kicked off with 2 very promising strikes from Godspeed, but Iron Scrap's Minibot would then strand Godspeed, allowing the Battle of Robots champ to deliver a huge hit of its own, breaking the weapon on Godspeed, but then disaster struck. In an attempt to turn around with hinder drive, Iron Scrap would wedge itself upwards and onto the forks of its own Cam Lifter Minibot, high centering itself while knocking the Minibot out, which apparently meant no unstick according to Battle of Robots. Iron Scrap would shockingly be knocked out by the robot it once beat in just 1 minute and 45 seconds a couple of months ago. The shock of the tournament had happened very early, and Godspeed was now even with its new Chinese rival and was moving on to the Elite 8 of the SuperFinal. Next up was a robot very likely to be relieved to have Iron Scrap eliminated so early, Adam versus the brand new Ecuadorian squad Jungle Demons with IWIAS, who, as I mentioned, will be rocking the horizontal spinner bar for this battle, their only option available. The stage was set for a classic horizontal spinner on vertical spinner showdown, a meeting between veterans and rookies, and somehow this battle ended up being even more anticlimactic than Godspeed versus Iron Scrap. The compact South American horizontal spinner went straight to the center of the arena, not spinning up its weapon at all, essentially taking a defensive stance against the oncoming Adam, who in just one strike would obliterate IWIAS's weapon, ripping the entire spinning bar out of its hinges while leaving the front of IWIAS completely agape within seconds, allowing Team Adam to have its way with the horizontal spinner. As with 2 more strikes, this one was mercifully over for the Jungle Demons, who are already packing back up for Ecuador following a knockout in 1 minute, 8 seconds. Next battle was between 2 countries which have a cultural history with one another in India and the UAE, as a true championship program in Blancabots was stepping into the arena to take on Team TBD and Towhid. This was another lopsided veteran vertical spinner versus rookie horizontal spinner matchup, but yet again, it was upset season at Battle of Robots, and in fact, if it wasn't for Iron Scrap going out so early, this would be the biggest upset by far. Both of these robots rocked the configuration game, with Towhid wearing an anti-spinner bumper, while Danaji may have gotten a little bit too confident for this fight, going all offense by ditching the wedge in favor of further reach on its vertical spinner. and Danaji started this fight on the offensive with a small array of strikes, doing some damage to Tauhid's bumper. One solid strike from Tauhid would knock an entire wheel loose on Danaji at the 30-second mark, damaging its own weapon in the process. Tauhid then played smart and stayed out of Danaji's way, long enough to get its weapon back up to speed so it could land the perfect strike to Danaji in the arena corner, stranding it for a shock knockout, leading to the team from Dubai to kick off their career 1-0, while the two strongest international teams present were already eliminated just 3 fights in. Next was a battle between two red and black European machines with Russia versus Belarus, Weber versus Walter Black. It was another battle of pure rookie versus true veteran, and quite frankly, the worst draw possible for a robot as boxy as Walter Black. Walter Black's spinning drum worked, but had little to no purchase in that weapon, and its drive was some of the slipperiest and sloppiest of the event. It was not able to land one flush strike, while Weber had its way with the brick-shaped bot, going for the one-hit knockout and getting it, throwing Crazy Bunny Labs' drum bot onto the same arena wall, which stranded Iron Scrap and IWIIS for a knockout in 1:20. Next was another battle between two Battle of Robots veterans with Huntsman and Turbo Masha in a Russian versus Kazakhstan showdown. Huntsman looked the best it ever had for this event, and with the extended flipping beak, there seemed to be some promise for the Brit Flipper, but after missing its only chance at the flip seconds into the fight, it was expectedly all Turbo Masha. The wild full-body spinner disabled the flipper on Huntsman in under 30 seconds, and its drive would follow not even a minute later. Huntsman was out in round 1 once again, going down by knockout in 2 minutes and 12 seconds, leaving an unknown future for the bulky flipper going forward. But now let's get to a little bit more of a successful Brit Flipper's first round with the Battle of Robots fourth place holder Barracuda. There may have been some questionable victories during its top 4 run last year, but there was nothing illegitimate about the victory it picked up over Condor Machine here. The Chilean Vert's debut fight kicked off with the spinner completely useless, leaving it as a target for Barracuda, who despite being a low-pressure flipper would still manage to knock out Condor Machine in just 2 flips. This was a tough start for the young team, who lost this fight via knockout in 1 minute and 13 seconds, though honestly this battle was over just after 19 seconds. So Barracuda had advanced, and just after it was a robot which had beaten it in the past, Daddy, who had a battle between two nations which were shockingly experienced in the sport with Russia and Iran. It was Daddy versus the rookie Diaco in a battle of shockingly similar designs, both focusing on widely different aspects of their robots. Both of these Chigger-style spinners were pretty well driven, but the larger and further reaching of the two, Daddy, got the better of every single exchange. It ripped the right fork off of Diaco very quickly, and then proceeded to throw it all over the arena for the fight's remainder. But credit to Diaco, this robot could take a genuine beating. Diaco withstood far more clean strikes from the powerful egg beater than any robot that had before it, making it all the way to the 1 minute 30-second mark of the battle before a vicious strike from Daddy into the screws would kill it. This fight will ultimately end at 1 minute and 59 seconds. Big shock, another knockout for the vicious egg beater from Russia. The very final round 1 battle was a much anticipated one. It was Brazil's debut inside the Battle of Robots arena with Brabern, and they were immediately being thrown into the deep end, going big spinner versus big spinner with none other than Battle of Robots 1 bronze medalist Wayside 23. In a battle of Combot clone versus Minotaur at home, we saw one of the most disappointing performances to ever come out of a Brazilian heavyweight, as it started this fight off by immediately whiffing on a box rush, stunning itself, and then from there forward, it was all Wayside 23, who landed multiple strikes to Brabern, even roofing it at one point. So by the time 3 minutes were up, this one shockingly did almost go to the judges. Brabern was visibly misshapen, stuck on its face, with its guts completely hanging out of the top of itself, with Wayside 23 the clear winner here. Brabern did show some durability, but where it had durability, it was severely lacking in driving and weapon prowess. You always have high hopes for the Brazilian teams. We know some are coming next year for Battle of Robots 2023, but this was a tough look for this new team. So now, from 16 robots, we move down to 8 robots across just 3 surviving nations of the 10, making it to the next round here. Quite fascinating, as day 2 of the tournament would kick off with a battle of all-stars in Adam and Godspeed going drum to drum. Both of these robots were coming in with little to no repairs, shocking in the case of Godspeed, who just like at Battle of Robots 2023, proved his round 1 victory was no fluke at all here, where it avenged its countrymate Sarkel by defeating Adam handily. Adam opened with a serpentine attack pattern while Godspeed remained surprisingly steady, a good move which allowed the Indian machine to outreach and outpower its two-wheel drive opponent from point A to point B. It took only 3 strikes to put Adam to bed here with a Godspeed knockout victory that lasted just 1 minute and 9 seconds. So India was on to the Final Four, but now the United Arab Emirates, Team TBD, and Tawhid were all looking for their ticket to the Final Four against a true veteran in Barracuda. The purple Brit flipper had struggled against some big-time spinners in the past, but not here against the still-skirted Tawhid. Barracuda managed a successful box rush and had the horizontal spinner flipped over within seconds, leaving Tawhid at a much worse angle to attack. There wasn't much the slower and weaker Tawhid could do against the well-driven Barracuda, allowing the Energy Girls to easily take Tawhid and prop it up onto the wall for a knockout victory in 1 minute 10 seconds. One of Barracuda's most impressive outings since the pandemic. Quarterfinal number 3 was actually a rematch from the Battle of Robots 2023 December finals, as unfortunately for Weber, the flipper was due to battle a demon of its past in Wayside 23 much earlier than it would have liked. These two last met in the Sweet 16 of that December final, and that would end up being a KO for Wayside 23 in the dying seconds of the match. Now we were 1 round deeper in the Elite 8, but the result sadly remained the same for poor Weber. What took Wayside 23 nearly 3 minutes to do last December, it managed to do in just over 30 seconds this February, as Wayside would quickly break the flipper of Weber in just 1 hit, and then just 2 strikes later, the veteran Weber would be flipped and decommissioned, leading to another knockout win for Wayside 23, this time going just 1 minute and 10 seconds, as the toppled Weber, they still have to be seriously questioned when it comes to their reliability moving forward. I'm very curious to see what's next for them. We do know it's going to be a brand new, fully rebuilt version of the robot for Battle of Robots 2024. We'll have to see what happens there. And now for the 4th and final quarterfinal matchup, let me tell you this. Please, go to VK.com, watch this one in full before I summarize it. You will not regret it. This was easily one of the best heavyweight fights I have seen in the last year, and will probably be one of the best this year when it is all said and done. It's fuck-off vertical spinner taking on fuck-off horizontal spinner, egg beater versus spinning shell, two vastly improved December finalists in Daddy and Turbo Masha going at it with everything they have. Turbo Masha started off strong with some solid strikes to the side of Daddy early, but once Team Daddy got their egg beater up to speed, the impacts it delivered to Turbo Masha were similar to that we saw from Hypershock versus Gigabyte. Turbo Masha was getting chucked like a pumpkin on a couple of occasions, but still held its own through the entire battle despite suffering some serious mauler dances on the way through it. It stayed up to speed and stayed aggressive versus Daddy, who at the halfway point of the battle would spike Turbo Masha so hard into the arena wall, it knocked the goddamn camera, the cameraman, and everything around it over from outside the arena. There was no breach of the arena here, but that just shows the sheer impact of the collision. Things were going flying both inside and outside of the arena at this point, and the fight would be brought to an abrupt halt due to safety, and eventually this would lead to an early stoppage in the battle. Daddy to advance to the semifinals, but Jesus. Huge credit to Turbo Masha here. Need two parties to put together an amazing battle, and it put on an electric show here. Super excited for the future of full body spinners with machines like this, improving and improving. But now it's semifinals time, and we're moving on to day 3 of the competition now. The final day of the super final on our road to what is, I gotta say it now, arguably the ugliest heavyweight championship trophy I have seen in quite some time. No offense to Battle of Robot, it looks like a computer tower though. The more things change, though, the more they stay the same here for Battle of Robots, as 3 of the 4 machines in the semifinals were also present in the semifinals during the main 2023 tournament. The only outlier here, of course, being Iron Scrap, who in turn was replaced with the just as scary Daddy. More on Daddy later, though. The first battle in the semis was a rematch from Battle of Robots 2023, with Energy Girls Barracuda fighting DT Robotics Godspeed, And unlike last time, Godspeed's spinning drum was working at full capacity, much to Barracuda's chagrin. This one was over before it even started. Godspeed did not let Barracuda get one single flip in, much less an offensive push before bullying the flipper into the arena corner, where it got popped onto the arena wall. And from here, Barracuda would try to right itself, but would instead strain itself even further, pulling a malice by getting itself stuck on its tail end, as Godspeed would win this one by knockout in just 52 seconds, enough to move the spinner into its second straight championship fight in as many events, with the greatest of ease, barely any damage at all on Godspeed. But now on to our second semifinal, and boy, this battle right here, you want to talk about two of the strongest weapons to debut last year. I mean, obviously you're going to think about two-time RoboGames champion Manta, but just behind Manta, you gotta put Daddy and Wayside 23 in similar company. And for the first time ever in their short careers, these two absolute missiles were set to fight one another. And for me, the question was not if these robots could handle one another, it was if the arena could. And sadly, the answer to that was an astounding no. I know everyone is talking about the RoboGames Arena breach, which happened a month ago as of when this video was dropping. But in my opinion, despite no injuries happening here, thankfully, the arena break that we witnessed in this battle was much worse. After exchanging small strikes back and forth to open, Daddy brought Wayside to the arena wall and spiked it as hard as it could, spinner first, into the Lexan glass wall, shedding through the Lexan and what looked like, I mean, I'm not an expert here, supports of the arena like absolute paper. This looked like it was on the same side of the arena as the press team, cameramen, and shockingly, there wasn't a stoppage immediately. Wayside 23 got flipped, but upon trying to self-right, thankfully, it got stuck on the arena wall, leaving Wayside 23 immobile for a knockout and the arena in an even worse state, as the event had to be paused for well over an hour after this to repair the arena for a final between Godspeed and Daddy, another rematch for the Indian team. But now before we get to the final of the arena discussion, it is worth noting that all the robots did get at least 2 fights, even if they were out of the bracket early. And of course, these fights will be recognized on the year's TCC overall rankings. So going over the results of these fights as briskly as we can, Iron Scrap would defeat a wedge-only IWIAS via brutal judges' decision, but only after IWIAS had a promising pin on Iron Scrap that eventually forced an unstick in the battle. Blanca Bots and Danaji vented their frustrations of an early exit out on Condor Machine, who showed much more durability in what was still eventually a victory for the veteran vertical spinner. Diaco and Huntsman showed off quite a bit of their potential in a back-and-forth battle that stayed in a dead heap until the final minute when Diaco landed a strike to flip over Huntsman, who lacked the power or shape to self-right. In a battle of underwhelming drum bots, Walter Black and Brauburn went head-to-head. Well, Walter Black did at least. Brauburn entered the arena, still broken to shit with its mini-bot moving more than it was, and this allowed Walter Black to chip away at its challenger for a win by knockout in a minute 33. Finally, Wayside 23 would also once again defeat Barracuda by knockout in what was their second third-place playoff battle in 3 months. This one was even more impressive for Wayside 23, looking good once again heading into the 2024 championship. But now we were on to the finals and putting the arena to the test once again in what was, for the third time, another rematch for Godspeed. This time, though, Godspeed was facing a robot a lot of fans thought it got lucky against, Daddy, in a Russia versus India championship round. The last time these two machines met was during Battle of Robots 2023's December finals in the round of 16. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. Daddy was an odds-on favorite to take the bracket and looked just as strong in the first half of the battle against Godspeed that December. But after its weapon broke, Godspeed's pushing power plus an unfortunate arena flip led to Daddy going out surprisingly early. Obviously, Godspeed would prove it's no joke in that tournament, going all the way to the final, but now it had to run face first into the robot, which almost thwarted it a few months prior. But now let's talk about this championship fight. The battle for the silver internet modem looking thingy kicked off much differently from the December battle aforementioned, with Godspeed winning the reach game within seconds this time, as it threw Daddy into the arena wall, busting the arena wall in the process within seconds. Daddy was completely rocked by this hit. Its weapon was out of order. Its drive was twitchy. But Godspeed's weapon was busted too. So once again, it came down to some phenomenal driving ability and driving force from DT Robotics to take it home against Daddy. They drove the Russian machine on a tour of the arena for the remaining 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And we even got a little bit of a smoke show during the final minute of the fight. Unsurprisingly, after an event with so many knockouts, Godspeed had done it on a unanimous judge's decision. After coming just one fight short of a championship at Battle of Robots, they take a huge consolation win here, leaving this international tournament victorious while defeating a few demons of its past in the process. So congratulations to India's DT Robotics and Godspeed, the Battle of Robots 2024 Super Final champion. So that wraps it up here. 16 robots from 10 nations up, and they all fell down, but the one and only Godspeed, and shoot, the arena almost fell down too. And that brings me to my next thing I want to discuss here before we zip it up on this video. A massive elephant in the room for me, as it always is with these situations. You know, a lot of the fans in the sport right now are talking about the RoboGames 2024 incident. And trust me, we'll get to that in a video down the line very soon. But outside of the fact someone got hurt during the RoboGames incident, a big deal, don't get me wrong, I really feel like what we saw during Daddy and Wayside 23 was a worse incident, and it could have led to a lot worse, especially with so many people near that arena wall. Now, I love Battle of Robots and what they're doing right now. It's why I've done so much to cover these events as I can on TCC over the last few months, even more than BattleBots, I'd say. Because whether you like these events or not, for whatever reasons you may have, it really has filled a void for myself and many other fans during the hiatus of news we've had on BattleBots World Championship 8. And with the upwards of legitimacy this event has gained from its roots as Bitva Robotov, so has the legitimacy in robots competing at these competitions, both coming out of Russia and coming from around the world. The frankly blatant reality is that this arena, one not much different visibly from the one we saw back at Bitva Robotov in 2019, is not built for this new era of robot combat, which is quickly approaching the up-and-coming nation. It's a miracle nothing too bad has happened yet. I brought up my worries about the arena maybe not being up to snuff during Daddy vs. Barracuda at Battle of Robots in September in one of our recent videos. And what happened there ended up happening quite a few times during this event, and that really was just the tip of the iceberg. The arena Lexan paneling took a serious beating in a couple of fights. Most obviously, the Daddy vs. Wayside 23 incident, and what happened during Turbo Masha vs. Daddy as well, which, you know, no arena breach, but a table outside the arena got sent flying, like completely flying. Something we saw on a video shared by the RDC on Facebook. Now, the latter of the three, it can be fixed by maybe not putting loose tables or whatever that thing was directly by the arena like that. But no, our real issue here is the first two scenarios. We know the nation of Russia is serious about robot combat. They've clearly put some serious funding and partnerships into making what was Bitva Robotov into a highly produced heavyweight event, live streamed to over 1 million people around the world. An event that's attracting some of the best the sport has to offer for its second championship, happening in just a couple of months. But if they're serious about the growth of this event and the safety of their staff, competitors, fans, then the arena needs to be improved if they're going to be playing with BattleBots level tip speeds. I mean, I'd argue that the RoboGames arena is much more safe and much more battle-tested than the Battle of Robots arena, whether it is an upgraded Bitva Robotov box or not. And still, the RoboGames arena had a handful of incidents last month during the 2024 event. I mean, it's simple. We all want to see Battle of Robots be a massive success, something that can fill the void King of Bots has left the Asian and international heavyweight scene. But it has to be done right. Nobody wants to look at this event with the same sort of attitude that has been built on events such as RoboGames nowadays, because the heavyweight scene, it needs these events. So, I mean, it's clear that they need a new arena for this upcoming competition. At the very least, massive upgrades, but I don't know how well you can upgrade that arena without just doing an overhaul. Something that can compare to the boxes of events like BattleBots and King of Bots. It doesn't need to be as complex or as tall as the BattleBots or King of Bots arena, but upgrades to the durability of the arena do need to be made, in my opinion, pretty obvious opinion. They clearly have something here at Battle of Robots. They know they have an international audience. They wouldn't be doing secondary English broadcasts if they didn't know that. And now they really have everyone's attention with Battle of Robots 2 happening in a few months. It's shaping up to be a massive 64 robot event featuring the likes of Daddy, Godspeed, Weber, American robots, and even Scrap, a collaborative robot coming from both Riobots and Uriah that's guaranteed to be a favorite for that event. It's exciting stuff, and I think everyone should still be excited for this event. Don't get it twisted. We are going to be covering it still here at the Combot Collective. I'm just hoping to be optimistic that Battle of Robots is willing to better every aspect of this event because it is quickly becoming a world-class competition for the sport, and I'm excited to see it, but, you know, there's got to be some progression there. But that's going to wrap it up. We had our PSA there at the end of the video. I hate doing those, but it is what it is. Probably another one for the RoboGames video coming up here down the pipeline. We're going to be covering Extreme Robots in a video, RoboGames in a couple of videos. I still need to do my TCC Autonomous video, which we are going to be coming back for the June NHRL events. Looking forward to that. But that's all we have to talk about here for the Battle of Robots SuperFinal. We covered 16 robots from all around the world. It was a great time. Covered our champion. Congratulations to DT Robotics and Godspeed. All the teams now that are probably getting ready for the 2024 Battle of Robots event. We'll have to see what happens there. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown, a.k.a. SterlingTXTG on Instagram. And you can follow the Combot Collective on Instagram in the description below. We make a lot of news posts there. We made a recent one about Endgame, the Endgame team hosting an upcoming Robot Combat heavyweight event in their nation. Super excited. We also post those updates on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have a Discord server where builders and fans from around the world share their content virtually and physically, talking about this amazing sport. All of our video upload news goes there first before anywhere else. And of course, right here on the YouTube page, if you like this video and you want to see more Robot Combat event rundowns and live streams, we got 2 live streams planned for June as well, then subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment giving us your thoughts on the Battle of Robots SuperFinal and Battle of Robots events to come. I would love to hear it. Love to hear some constructive criticism on the channel, as always. But now, let's wrap it up right here. This has been the Combot Collective with another breakdown. We'll see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.